Good evening, and welcome to the 22nd episode of Be Not Afraid, A Catholic Perspective. We are very happy to welcome back our guest, Linda Ross Swanson. A grief counselor, workshop presenter, speaker, and author, Linda is a nationally certified through the Association of Death Education and Counseling. With a master's degree in applied theology and a diploma in pastoral care, she is also an associate sister of the Holy Name, who are strong social advocates. Linda's counseling practice is located in Southwest Portland near St. Vincent's Hospital. Linda also teaches workshops on how one can memorialize their life experiences and wisdom in a legacy letter or wisdom will, as well as sessions on effective listening, how you can help, and other topics. Her first book, Wisdom Under the Bridge, The Prophets from Skid Row, chronicles the lives of the addicts, the homeless, and the alcoholics of Skid Row in Portland, Oregon, as told by them. In addition, she has published many articles in magazines, newspapers, journals, and anthologies across the United States, Canada, and Europe. In her own words, no one has to walk alone through their time of loss. I am here to help people wrap their minds around death, find a way of preserving memories, and moving on to meaningful living. We never fully recover when we have lost a loved one, but we can find new life and purpose. We will smile again and enjoy ourselves without taking away from the love we hold for the deceased. Tonight's discussion promises to be both informative and mind-expanding, so let us begin. And on that note, here to introduce our guest and tonight's focus is our host, Walt Rollo.
Good evening and welcome to Be Not Afraid. And once again, Nanette, thank you so much for the introduction. She always does double duty. She does the announcing and the directing. So we got a ghost director in there right now, I guess. Well, my guest tonight is Linda Ross Swanson. This is about your third time or fourth time that we're.
Yeah, we've been together, yeah.
So it's from your original book signing and had you on the show. We had a book reading. So you're getting pretty close to it.
Getting used to this.
Yes. When did you write the book?
Well, actually, I started it in 2004, and it was published in 2012, so in December of 2012. So it was an 8-year project.
Well, it was a good book, so it is a good book.
Thank you.
And what inspired you to write the book?
Well, when I got my master's degree in 2005 from Marylhurst University in applied theology, which is an interfaith program. And we studied all the major religions of the world, and one of the assignments was to find a ritual from one of the major religions and present it to the class. And I came across the tradition of, the Jewish tradition of an ethical will, which goes back to biblical times when Jacob gathered his 12 sons around his deathbed and bequeathed his blessings and his instructions and so forth to them. And so for years it was an ethical will was a oral tradition. And then when writing became popular, people started writing letters instead, and they quit doing it right at the moment of death, and they did it earlier, you know, and so they could pass them on sooner. Nowadays, some people pass them on, you know, sometimes at weddings or the birth of a child or a confirmation or something like that. But the main thing is to start writing and collecting your wisdom so that you can pass it on after you're gone, because otherwise it's going to be buried with us buried with you when you die. And what's the use of learning if you don't pass it on, if you don't share it? So that was where it came from. And then I had done work with hospice patients as well, encapsulating some of the things that they wanted to be remembered for. And I used to document and tape them and prepare these little letters for them to pass on to their family. So it fit right in with my hospice work. And then I found too that if after the person dies, it really becomes a talisman, a real comfort kind of touchstone. If you have a letter from your loved one,
Something to
so
remember.
you can remember them. You can read what life meant to them and what you meant to them, and it helps alleviate some of the pain of the loss, I think, if you have a letter.
So how did you pick Portland, or is that?
How'd I pick the target audience for my book?
Yeah.
Well, actually, in the introduction, she said they were alcoholics and addicts from Skid Row, but actually they're recovering alcoholics and addicts and folks that sometimes they're dual diagnosed as well, so they may have mental illness too. But the folks that I interviewed were 12 people who had addiction problems, and everybody had given up on them. I mean, they had really bad addictions where they were in and out of treatment centers, in and out of jail, and nobody thought they were ever going to recover. There was no hope. In fact, they'd given up on themselves.
Yeah.
And somehow or other, by the grace of God, they all were able to find sobriety, and were all now working or volunteering and giving back to a society really that had shunned them and the one that they had ripped off. But we're all giving back. So I chose them on purpose because I think we learn the most from adversity, and I thought people who had lived on the streets probably had some of the worst adversity there could be.
Yes.
And also, they are kind of my tribe because my mother was mentally ill and I had 2 homeless alcoholic brothers, and I'm a recovering alcoholic myself. So
You're about 26 years now.
yeah,
right?
26 years. Good remembering.
Hey.
So I knew that I'd have an in with them. They'd feel comfortable talking to me, certainly because I'm a recovering alcoholic, and just mentioning that would open doors for me. Plus the fact that one of my brothers was living right across the street from the downtown chapel, which is now St. Andre Bisset's Catholic Church. Its new name. But there was an SRO, or a single room occupancy hotel, where recovering addicts and alcoholics could live, called the Mark Hatfield. And my brother lived there for a long time.
That's where a lot of them get their start again.
Yes, in those SROs,
single living.
Yeah, they're great. It's affordable housing for folks that otherwise couldn't afford it, and helps them get back on their feet.
Where are some of the places where if a person sees a show and they were homeless, where would they go to?
I would contact Central City Concern. They have numerous programs to help find housing and to direct people into treatment programs and stuff. If somebody just wanted to get sober and they didn't have any money, then I would suggest they go to Hooper Detox, which is downtown. And then from there they can transition into DePaul Treatment Center, but there is usually a wait. But so.
A lot of times, people that really don't know about the homeless will say, well, that's their life. They chose it. It's their, that's the way they want to live. And that's not the case, is it?
No, and the thing is, the disease of addiction could hit anybody from the affluent to somebody in the third world.
Yeah.
People on the street, some of them were attorneys, doctors. Many of them are very highly educated, but addiction just took over their lives. And they certainly don't choose that, but they've burnt so many bridges that there's no way that they can get back into society again unless they get clean and stay clean and, find some help.
Another thing would be abuse during childhood. And I bring that up because I remember
Shorty.
Shorty,
Yeah.
who was abused by her mother and right up to 25,
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe.
She was, abused by a parent, like Shorty in the book was abused by her mother until she was 25. It becomes a cycle, a vicious cycle. And there's this reward period, the mom will be nice for a while, and so the child feels safe. And then there's abuse again, and maybe the parent will feel guilty and start rewarding the child with gifts and stuff. And so it becomes this cycle of abuse, reward, and it can't get out of it. It's just the same with battered women.
Exactly.
So it's the same with a child. And so Shorty was like 23 or 25 by the time she was able to escape her mother, but it was because she was caught in this cycle that she couldn't get out of. And of course she was using and abusing drugs. That's how she dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about drug addiction and alcoholism is it stunts our growth emotionally. So emotionally she was the same age emotionally she was the same age as she was when she started using and abusing. You have to quit using and abusing before you emotionally can grow up. So she was immature, and your immaturity keeps you from growing and learning how to get out of these difficult
And when
situations.
you do stop drinking or using drugs, the addiction kind of grows up too.
Oh yeah.
Well,
it continues to grow whether you're using or not.
Right.
And then, for example, I've been clean 26 years, but if I started drinking tomorrow, the damage would be as bad as if I had drank the last 26 years.
Yeah. Which
is a very weird, counterintuitive situation. I don't know of any other disease that works that way.
I know.
But it just snowballs. I would probably have DTs. They'd probably have to put me in a treatment center immediately,
Yeah, just a little,
you know.
4 beers or 4 drinks.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do 4. I'd probably, can you stop at 4? Not when you're an addict.
Exactly.
But however, it's true, once you are far down the road in your alcoholism, you need as much alcohol because your liver's saturated. So you can be, you're drunk all the time, even if you drink 2 or 3, because your liver can't process it.
Exactly.
The alcohol. So.
And talking about Shorty again, she actually worked. I mean, she worked at McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Fred Meyer's.
Yeah, she worked at Fred Meyer's.
She was a hard worker.
Yep, she worked in spite of that, and she tried to report it once her boss called her in and asked her what's going on because she had bruises.
Right.
And she told him, and then she was afraid to report it to the police.
Yeah,
because she was afraid of the repercussions, that it would be worse if she went back. So, and that's the whole thing. Fear keeps people from going forward. They're afraid the abuse going back is going to be worse than it was before.
And they believe the abuser is, I won't do that again, I'm really sorry.
They want to believe,
Yeah.
But that's the definition of insanity. You keep going back over and over and expecting different results.
Yeah.
So.
You live the same kind of life, you're going to have the same kind of results.
Exactly. Still going to fall in that hole if it's in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
and you're walking down it.
Yeah, you keep on walking down the road, you're going to fall in a hole unless you go around it.
Yeah, that's right. Or take another street.
I'll take another street, exactly.
Yeah. Portia Nelson's little book, that little book, Portia Nelson called There's a Hole in My Sidewalk.
Uh-huh.
That's where that comes from.
And another advocate of the people on the street is Father Rab. Is Rob? Rab?
Father Rob.
Rab from...
St. Andre's Bisset,
Right.
yeah. Well, the whole downtown chapel, which is now St. Andre Bisset's, they changed the name in the last year. It is a Catholic parish that's dedicated to helping the people that live on the streets and in the neighborhoods and in those low-income hotels. It's right there on the corner of 6th and Southwest Burnside, and so and Old Town. So they service all of Old Town, and which we call the Skid Row area. And so all their programs and services are all directed toward taking care of the alcoholics, the addicts, the homeless, the poor, the mentally ill.
Yeah, that's all.
And he gives poverty retreats, depression retreats. It's not how to be poor and how to be depressed, but it's just the opposite of that. But
we know how to do that pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like teaching us how to be an alcoholic.
He even has a mass, I think, on Wednesdays for recovering people. I think it's on Wednesdays. The 5 o'clock mass is dedicated to recovery, I think.
And he was one of the first that started it, isn't it?
No, that was the pastor there is.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the pastor.
Let me think what his name is. Steve Newton.
Big Newton?
Steve Newton.
Oh, Steve.
Yeah,
Newton.
and that's how I remembered it, because there's a mentally ill fellow that goes to St. Andre's, and he always calls Father Steve Fig Newton or something like that, and so that's how I remember his name was Steve Newton. And he was involved in the early stages of the DePaul Center, which is the treatment center for low-income folks in Portland.
And I can't remember her name. I've met her once.
Monica?
She was at the chocolate shop for the reading.
Are you talking about Sister Kate?
Yes.
Sister Kate St. Martin, she's 91?
91?
Yeah. Yeah, she was one of the early advocates. She's got a chapter in my book, too. She was an early advocate for the homeless and the alcoholics in Skid Row, and she asked her religious community at the time, I think it was Sisters of St. Mary's, that she was a nun at Sisters of St. Mary's in Beaverton, and she asked if she couldn't use her day off to volunteer downtown with the homeless, and they gave her permission to do that. And later on, she became a nurse so that she could really spend more time down there helping. And so she would treat wine sores and take maggots out of people's wounds and just all kinds of stuff that she saw. I asked her how could she stand the smells, just because so many people that live on the street don't have access to showers and laundromats and so there can be some pretty pungent smells, and she learned how to breathe through her mouth. And that's how she did it. And the truth is, her caring and her love was just bigger than any smell or anything that was unsightly that she might see. But she was instrumental in starting a lot of the halfway houses as well.
And she did that too, just a few years ago, didn't she?
Yeah, she did it till in fact, I think she may still read the Bible to AIDS patients over the telephone, which is really fascinating because she's blind in one eye, has macular degeneration in the other one, and just has tunnel vision in that one eye. And and she said to me one day, "Have you read The Help?" So she's very current. She said she's going to read till that last eye, the light goes completely out. So until a few years ago, she was reading to AIDS patients over the telephone. So
very active person.
Yeah, just pretty
and
amazing.
A very lovely person too.
Yeah.
You know, when I met her,
little tiny thing.
Just, how do you know me? As I read the book.
I read your story. I heard your story. Yeah.
So she's a great influence on a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, you know, there is a book out about her that's about this thick. There was a fellow that wrote it. I can't remember what his last name is, but you can find it on Amazon. It's called, what is it called? Now I'm going to forget the name of the book. I have forgotten the name of the book. Something about the dark. Anyway, he followed her around for 26 years and recorded stories and examples from her and put this book together. It just came out. I'll have to get the name for you so you can tell them another time on here. Yeah, I can remember it's something about dark in the title of it. But anyway, it's this chronicle of the work that she'd done, and it's huge. And I think it sells for like $34 or something because it was so expensive to produce. I think one of the university presses put it out. But
if it's all her stories, people can read that and really see what's, what she's done and how she's done it.
Exactly. She really can give you an insight into what living on the streets was really about from people who haven't recovered. I mean, these were people the people that she helped were people that were actively using, most of them. Some of them got clean and sober, but many of them stayed in their addictions. And she just kept loving them.
Do they keep any kind of statistics on the people that are living on the streets? Yeah,
they do. I don't have them offhand. Sisters of the Road keeps pretty good track of that, and they have a book out that has statistics up the gazoo. It's the only book of its kind in the United States, and it's statistics taken from the mouth of the people that live on the streets. So they interviewed like 600 people and asked them all kinds of questions, and it's another one of those large large books, but if you're interested in statistics, you can contact Sisters of the Road and ask them about their book.
Okay. Now, I picked Shorty. Did you have any particular person that you talked to that?
Well, I think, every one of them, there were 12, there happened to be 12, so that's why I called them prophets, that I interviewed. And yeah, all of them for me are memorable because I got to know them. Mary's the first one in the book, and I think one of the things that tossed her into heavy, hardcore addiction was the fact that when she was 17, she was in her room taking a nap and she heard gunshots and got up and she found her brother and her mother had been murdered.
Oh, wow.
In the bedroom, and you can imagine what she saw. I can't even wrap my mind around what she saw when she opened that door, and why she wasn't killed, God only knows.
Yeah.
But after that, her addictions accelerated, and she kept using and abusing and became a prostitute to support her addiction. And when she was living in Dignity Village for a while, she had a stroke. She was 35 years old, and it was pouring down rain, and she was living in this little tent, and the rain was coming down so hard the tent was collapsing, and she was paralyzed on her left side. So with her right foot, she was holding up the tent so she wouldn't drown. And her boyfriend, when he came back, he didn't want to take her to the hospital, and neither did she want to go because they both had warrants out for their arrests for DUIs or something, and they were afraid to go to the hospital. And so it took 2 weeks before she could talk or even walk again. And that was kind of the beginning of her thinking, maybe I've had enough. And she borrowed some methadone from a friend of hers that was dying of AIDS to get her through a few days so she could get into Hooper detox. And so that was the first time she went in. It took another few years before she finally did get clean and sober, but she was a heroin addict. And that's a tough one to get over. And the detoxing from that is really tough.
Is it really?
Really, really tough. So I think she's pretty amazing. And she's now, she's got a new boyfriend in her life, and she's thinking about going to college. And
Oh, great.
And so she's trying to make something of her life, you know.
And there's one gentleman I met at one of your readings.
Tim.
And he knew exactly where he was in the book.
Oh yeah.
And he let everybody know.
He was real proud of himself.
Yeah.
And everybody that's in there was real proud of their story. It really helped it was kind of I had no idea what it was going to do for their self-esteem just by writing their stories, but they were also proud of themselves, first of all, for getting clean and sober, because they never thought they were ever going to get clean and sober. And they all wanted to tell their story because they all wanted other people to learn from their example.
Yeah.
And so I gave every one of them the stories in the book. I had to shorten. I hired an editor to shorten them because some of them were 30 and 40 pages long, and I let them be as long as they could talk as long as they want. It was their story, so I transcribed all of that and gave them their whole story back, and gave them as many copies as they wanted. And most of them had at least 12, so that they could hand out to different folks. Now Mary, I gave her as many copies as she wanted, but she wouldn't even let me use her last initial because she wanted to remain completely anonymous because she was ashamed of some of the things that she'd done when she was using.
Yeah.
And that's understandable.
I'm sure just writing their story down is somebody's listening then that helped them out, take the next step to getting sober and getting help. Is people never listened to them. They weren't able to tell their story.
Yeah.
And you've enabled them to tell their story, and I think that helped out immensely.
Yeah, it does, and so does the AA and the NA programs where they have an opportunity to tell their stories. And a lot of it about telling our story is it reminds us, as an alcoholic myself, just telling my story, reminds me that I'm an alcoholic and that I can't drink again, and that I want to be an example for others. And so, it's a way of, that's why people who have lost loved ones need to be listened to, because it takes them a really long time to get their mind around the fact that their loved one is actually dead. Mm-hmm. It takes us a really long time to get our mind around the fact that we really are alcoholics and addicts, because denial is the biggest thing the biggest obstacle to recovery. So the more you tell your story, the more it sinks in that you can't indulge in the practices anymore. You have to find something else to fill that void.
Tuesday is my anniversary.
Yes, is it 5?
4 years.
4. Congratulations.
So it's
no small feat. That's big.
But you live so much better. But by the grace of God, there goes I.
Yeah, and either one of us could be on the street.
Yeah, we
and
can
could
be
in that
tomorrow.
book.
Yeah.
And hope, and who knows? That's one of the things that keeps me from drinking is realizing that the drug has accelerated in my system, whether I use or not, and I don't want to go back to that life. Do you want to go back to? I don't want to be that person. I don't like that person.
Well, we're showing your book right now, the cover. We did show it.
Oh, yeah?
I'm glad you brought up Sisters of the Road.
Yeah. A fabulous
great
place.
organization. And I happened to visit it there one day.
Yeah?
So why don't we take a break right now, and we'll go to see that spot about Sisters of the Road. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, hello and welcome to Sisters of the Road. Sisters of the Road has been a part of Old Town Chinatown, Portland for about 32 years. Most folks know us for our cafe. Our cafe welcomes people who are experiencing homelessness and poverty, and we ask folks to pay $1.25 for a meal, and they can pay for that with cash or using food stamps, and they can also barter work for a meal. So someone can wash windows or sweep outside for 15 minutes, and that's enough to earn a great meal, locally sourced food, really nutritious and delicious. So that's one piece of what we do, and we also have a systemic change program that's really central to our work as well. And in that program, folks who are experiencing homelessness and poverty learn skills that help them take their thoughts and their solutions to policymakers and to the larger community. So they learn to shoot films through our Empowered Voices Media project. They learn to do public speaking and to do advocacy work and community organizing. And that's all part of our systemic change program and also our Dorothy Day Community School. So we welcome folks from all over the community to come join us at Sisters of the Road. We're based in nonviolence and gentle personalism, and that informs how we work together and the friendships that we make and the deep relationships that are formed here. Folks, everyone is welcome to join us, and we do hope that everyone comes down to the cafe and has lunch, gets to know the folks who work here, all of us from barter workers to volunteers to staff. So please come down and join us sometime, and you can find us on the web at www.sistersoftheroad.org. Thanks so much.
And welcome back. Heather is the one that was speaking on that commercial. She's been there for a while working in Sisters of the Road, and she explained it really well, what they do and how they help the people out in the, from the streets and giving them healthy food and hot food at a reasonable amount, and they can, like she said, they can even work it off. Linda, last month we had another show we work on. It was east of yesterday, and as I was watching this show, I was Florida director on that, I couldn't help but think about your book. And I said, wow, this is Linda's book.
Ties right in, huh?
And it was fantastic how a person went from the streets and how he wrote a letter of wisdom. Is that right?
Wisdom will. Well, I call it
So
a wisdom will. A legacy letter of some sort.
So he read that at the end, and so we're going to take a look at that right now.
Oh, interesting.
And when we come back, you can tell me what you think about it and
Sure.
Any comments you have.
Okay.
So why don't we roll that right now?
Our spark lasted a single summer. A beautiful summer. Flowers picked on bicycles, poetry, forgiveness, pledges to be better people. In the low life of that low life, she was a shining light. And like the fireworks after sunset, our love was bright and grand. Oh, fuck my life.
Hi. Can't rain forever, you know?
You're obviously not from Portland.
Well, you got me there, but I don't see how that makes my point null and void.
You have the stink of California all over you, that smiley, sunny BS.
I'm not from California. Guess again.
Florida? Some other place doesn't get this is a rainforest. It sucks. And we happen to be in the middle of monsoon season.
Wow. Okay. Well, it was nice to meet you, Eeyore.
Eeyore? The hell does that mean?
Haven't you ever read Winnie the Pooh? Well, there's this character who's all depressed. A donkey. And he whines about how bad it is, you know, hanging out under bridges and such. I always thought he was a heroin addict myself.
Yeah? Who are you, Mary Pippins?
Yeah, silly boy, yes I am. Mary Pippins at your service. Do you ever smile?
Yeah, I smile all the time. I'd smile more if my life wasn't such shit.
Ah, I see. Poor thing. Such a mean world to you. What are you waiting for? I mean, what if it never gets any better than this?
You don't know me. I have done everything I can to get off these goddamn streets. It's this country, this city, these people. They don't want me to be happy.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm gonna go find the end of this rain cloud and wave at you under it. Was nice. See ya.
Wait. I should go with you. It's dangerous out there. I'll keep you safe.
You hungry? My stomach's kicking.
Always.
I know a good pizza joint in Old Town.
Old Town Pizza? Fine.
Have you been there? Do you not like their food or something?
No, it's just I stay on this side of the river whenever I can.
Well, today you're with me. Remember? I'll keep you safe. Here. Get well. Tomorrow will be a better day.
What did you do that for? Do you think that's gonna change anything? I am so tired of people doing shit that changes nothing. They come down here from their privileged houses in the hills and think if they pet the homeless, they'll get into heaven. Truth is, he'll be throwing up in that exact same garbage can tomorrow.
You are absolutely clueless sometimes.
These people don't need your self-righteous pity. They need houses, jobs, doctors and shit, not handouts.
It's not pity, you ass. It's called compassion. I've been there, hopeless and strung out, wanting nothing more than the pain to go away. You of all people should understand that.
You strung out? I had no idea.
You assumed, like a jerk with all the right answers. Could I forgive you?
That's very Christian of you.
You don't have to believe in an imaginary being to understand forgiveness and compassion.
I still don't see what you think you're accomplishing giving money to a junkie.
You know? You're right. Maybe I can't free that man from his hell. But the least I could do is bring him a glass of water.
A smoke cloud of angry, hurting words and broken windows remained. I got a job at a homeless shelter, working graveyards, handing out towels, spreading the word of change. She drifted from place to place before winding up in a Central American jungle teaching English around fires. After a few years, I rolled into community college, met a girl, settled down. Within a year, my son was born. Dearest Vivian, I don't know where you are or how to reach you, but I should have written this years ago. You know, they say that you must love yourself before you can love anyone else. But that summer long ago, I learned sometimes it takes someone loving you first. I learned something else recently, but not all at once. I found my father pushing a shopping cart, singing drunkenly into the rain. It had been almost 20 years without him. I was happy to get him in my life, in any condition. Well, he's sober now, 2 years. His health is fragile and his mind is worn. After he quit drinking, he came to live with us. For years, I thought he didn't love me. His gruff machismo kept words like, "I love you," from ever leaving his lips. When I found my father living under an overpass, it took months to get him into a treatment center. When he got out, I was scared he had no reason to stay sober. So I got him a dog. Something that needed him. They bonded in a way that left me jealous. His name was Tango, like the dance. Boy, was he a dancer. Half boxer, half pit bull. He had this wonderful human persona and eyes that felt as if they really knew you. As my father grew stronger, my love and appreciation for Tango did as well. We shared a father. We were brothers. Well, after a while, Tango started getting sick. Vomiting, diarrhea, the works. We hadn't much money, so we didn't have health insurance for us, let alone the dog. We took him in several times and they had no idea what was wrong. Weeks turned into months. He lost weight so bad that I wanted to cry when I looked at him. This being that had brought my father back to life was now slipping away from us. We changed vets and he got better for a short time. My father's spirit waned and I'd find him in the living room in the middle of the night just petting Tango in the dark. I think now he didn't want me to see him cry. One morning, I found Tango lying in the hall, unable to get up, shaking as if cold. There's a dark bend in the road when we must turn from hope and consider mercy. When the veterinarian said that it was pancreatic cancer, I cried deep streams of tears. I didn't even know my face could do that. I cried more for that dog than I did my own mother. I guess the difference was that I was sober. I could actually feel the loss. I carried Tango to the car, and my father kissed him one last time. I stayed with him. I watched him administer the shot that sent him to sleep. I felt his heart stop, his breath cease, and the dance end. The hardest part of the whole ordeal was that I had to make the decision to end it. I realized we never really save anyone's life, we only prolong it. I loved that dog for being my friend, for giving me back my father as a loving man, and for the strength he must have had to push on for as long as he did. Thank you, Vivian, for helping me see my life in such ways.
It was touching.
It really is.
You know, both times I've seen it. Probably more
Yeah.
this time because I'm actually sitting here, able to really watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are your feelings? And is it closely related to the way you wrote your book?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was raw emotion that he was writing
Uh-huh.
with, I think, and they touched on some things in the beginning of that little clip when he was talking about nobody listened to him and what we need is jobs and this and that and everything. That's so typical of alcoholics and addicts. We blame everybody. We blame the whole world. It's never about us. And until we can become accountable for our own behavior and recognize that a lot of the reasons we don't have the things that we're wanting is because we've burnt all the bridges behind us, you know, and we're responsible really for the outcome of our life based on the fact that we were using and abusing. And
Yeah, I used to have a fire department following me, but they even got tired of following me with all the bridges I was burning.
Exactly. Yeah. Another thing is, he said that he cried more than for the dog than he did his mother, and it's true. He could finally really feel again once, because one of the reasons that we use and abuse is because most of us are really sensitive people. People that are addicts and alcoholics are real sensitive people, and we feel a lot. We can sense the energy in the room, and we feel a lot. So one of the reasons we used and abused is to keep it away from us so we didn't have to feel so much. And so he probably was feeling, for the first time, some of the real raw emotions. But the other thing is, once you start to grieve, it brings up all your other unresolved griefs. So anything else that he had lost in his past, he may have been grieving for too, even though he may not have been aware of it.
At the time?
Yeah. So when he was grieving for the dog, he was probably also grieving for his mother and maybe the loss of the years from using and abusing. And you know, once you start grieving everything, you're grieving everything.
Yeah, I see that with myself a lot. You know, and I'll look back at things, the way the things were, and knowing now how I could have corrected them. And made it much, much better.
Yeah, and at some point we have to get to a place of self-forgiveness and recognize that that's who I was then. I'm not that person now, and there's nothing I can do backward. You can't go backwards and correct anything, but you can move forward and be an example for others to follow. And really, it's who we are today that matters, not who we were, you know, in our drinking and drugging days, because that also informed who we are today. It gave us, in a way, there's gifts even in that. It taught us compassion and understanding and empathy and all kinds of things, you know.
And we got to live in today, because the past is in the past. There's nothing you can do about it, and tomorrow's not here yet.
That's right. Somebody told me once, you live in the past, you live with guilt. You live in the future, you live with fear. And so the only place to live to feel safe is really right here in this moment, you know.
Right.
And I always remember that. Because this now is all we have, so.
Yeah, tomorrow's promised to nobody.
Yeah, that's right.
That's, when you can't forgive yourself, isn't it hard to be able to forgive others then? You feel that?
If you can't forgive yourself, I think it starts with us. I think we have to be able to forgive ourselves in order to forgive others, you know, to really sincerely forgive others and let go. If we can't let go of our own stuff, we're just hanging on to everything, you know, and that just adds fuel to the fire, you know. That's one of the reasons that we keep drinking, is because we're hanging on to those resentments, and or we're hanging on to, I'm a bad person, so I might as well drink. It doesn't matter, nobody cares, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, you drink when you're happy, and you drink when you're sad. I mean,
you just drink,
everything's a reason to drink. You know, in the book The Little Prince, the drunk says, "I drink because I drink."
Another thing, if people tell you that you'll never amount to anything, eventually you're going to believe that.
It can be a self-fulfilling prophecy if you focus on it, you know. And that's why I think teachers and parents need to be really careful of what they're saying to their kids, you know. If I knew what I know now about child rearing, I probably wouldn't have had any kids, because I made all those mistakes. You know, I certainly made a ton of mistakes raising my kids, but fortunately they turned out great in spite of me, or because of me maybe. But yeah, I mean, if you're a kid that's been bullied, and you know, those kinds of things stick with our psyche, you know, and and if we feed them, we start believing them ourselves, You really need to be around somebody that's a cheerleader for you,
Uh-huh. You mentioned your children. I've met one of them.
Lana.
Thank you.
Lana Vinker, yeah.
And she's not only a traveler, she's a casting director.
Yeah, she's a casting director in Portland.
And she's got one of the shows that she was casting director of, actually did a show right in this, Leverage.
Yeah.
They did a show right in the studio,
Oh,
the same
how fun.
studio.
Really? How fun is that?
So, but she's a lovely
Yeah.
person. And Linda, before we end the show tonight, is there anything else you would like to bring up? Like, do you have anything else in the works?
Well, one thing is that if people are interested in learning more about me, they could go to my website, which is just lindarossswanson.com. And my book is available at my e-store online there. And also, and it's also available on Amazon, and it's also available in Kindle format. But I have a blog on my website as well, and yeah.
And you keep track of that, right? Keeps you
Yeah.
busy.
That keeps me busy, yeah. And I've been setting up 3-hour workshops called Creating the Gift of You, and I teach people how to write a legacy letter, which I call a wisdom will.
Mm-hmm.
And so they, in the 3 hours, they have a beginning and an ending paragraph, and then they have a couple of paragraphs to the middle. So it really gives them a jump start on writing their own wisdom will, which is what everybody in the book did. So, and then there's a template in the back of the book that has questions that people can use if they don't want to do the workshop, but if they want to start on a wisdom will themselves.
Right now you're doing some work with hospice?
No, I've been doing speaking engagements at retirement facilities
Oh, okay.
and Small Business Administration, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Central City Concern, places like that.
So you are keeping busy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's always something to do. I just want to get the word out. I want people to really record their wisdom before they're on their deathbed,
Yeah.
so that they can pass it on. And I think it's really important. I've seen how it really helps people who are grieving if they have one of those letters. And I think we owe it to our loved ones to leave something written behind, if not a audio or a videotape.
And it's a lot better. A lot of people have their picture
Yeah.
of a loved one that's died, and they'll be looking at that. But
Yeah.
having the words too
Yeah.
behind that
Yeah.
makes it. I would think that would make it so much stronger.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you can get an audio recording or a video recording or a written recording, something in writing, any of those things are really wonderful to have after a person's gone. I know people that have saved. You remember when we had answering machines? People would save the tapes on their loved one had recorded just the message, on their answering machine, and they'd play that over and over again. So.
And I've seen that on Judge Judy, where they take in a tape. I've got his threat right on
here on this recording. Yeah.
But it's good to hear the voice again, and too.
Yeah. And some people play that. I had a friend whose wife died, and she had recorded the tape on their answering machine, and he kept that on there for a really long time. I found it really disturbing when I'd call him, because I'd hear Mary Ellen's voice and know that she was gone, and it just made me sad all over again.
Oh, okay.
But he did it because he wanted to hear her voice.
So it's recording that somebody would hear when they call up.
Yeah, like, hi, this is Mary Ellen,
okay.
And she had died, but he kept it on the phone for a really long time. So
That's something. It's always something new to do.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
So maybe I will.
Change your recording.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much for being here. It's
you're
always a
welcome.
pleasure when you come by, and every time I think about Wisdom of the Bridge, it's all these stories, and it was one of the first books I read for all the way through in a long time.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not that much
That
of
says
a
something.
reader.
That makes me feel good.
But I mean, the stories were
Yeah.
just so fantastic.
Compelling,
and-
yeah.
Because I could see myself in a lot of it too.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing. And you know, people in recovery, we stand. I mean, that's what got us sober. We stand on the shoulders of people who have gotten clean and sober before us. That's what AA is all about. You know, it's all about the power of story. So we learn from stories. That's
Yeah, it's testimonial, and
yeah,
you know, and it gets it out. You know, you're not holding it in.
exactly.
A lot of times, you know, people
Yeah.
hold on to their stuff.
Yeah,
You know, it's my stuff, and you can't have it.
and I'm not sharing it. Yeah.
That's it. Well,
But,
again, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
We've got a not a website, but my email. If we can get that up on the screen. If you have any comments about the show, let me know. Good or bad. I'd like to hear about it. And we're also on YouTube now. We have some of our past shows on there. And if you just type in Be Not Afraid / Walt Rollo, you'll be able to see some of our past episodes, like Liberty Pike, who did a fantastic show on abortion. So tune into those and you'll see what we missed. His name was Tim, and his birthday was coming up. And he wanted a bicycle so bad. So he sat down and wrote a letter. He says, "Dear Jesus, can you please get me a bicycle for my birthday? If you do, I'll be good for a whole year." And he thought about that. He says, "Oh, a whole year? I don't know if I can do that." And he crumbles up the letter, throws it in the garbage. He tries again. He says, "Dear Jesus, if you get me a bicycle, I'll be good for 6 months." That's not going to work either. So I tried one more time, and he says, "Dear Jesus, if you get me a bicycle, I'll wash the dishes for a whole month." I hate washing dishes. I ain't going to do that. So he goes to church the next Sunday, and as he's going in, he sees a statue of the Blessed Mary. And he's seen it before, but it kind of touched him this time. And after Mass was over, he asked his parents if he could stay there for a while. And they said yes. He went over to the Blessed Mary and looked at her and looked up at her face, turned around to see if everybody was gone. And they were, so he reached up and he took the statue. And he took it home. He put it underneath his bed. He got his pen and paper out again and wrote another letter. "Dear Jesus, I got your mother. Get me a bicycle and you can have her back." And with that, as a reminder, they say our youth are our future. I say they're our present. And if we don't take care of them now, what kind of future will we have? On behalf of my crew, I'm Walt Rollo. Thank you for watching, and God love you.